Hey, it's George, and welcome back. So, in my last video, I went off on a little bit of a tangent, talking about the simulation theory, and I wanted to bring it back to a little bit more relevant topic today, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But while I've been talking about Christianity quite a bit, I just wanted to offer some thoughts on that. And really, for me, Christianity is not about all the rules and all the things that you're not allowed to do. Christianity is more about what you're for, not what you're against. And, I think if we could look at the example Jesus set for us, that, he didn't get all religious and tell people what they should and shouldn't do. In fact, he forgave people. He was all about saving people. He was all about loving people. And so we get this view in our minds of Christianity as this organization that tells people what to do. But that's not what God had in mind. That's not what Jesus had in mind. So if you'd like to learn more about that, I have a book out. It's called Exclaim. It's on Amazon, and I've put the link in the description. But at the same time, it's as cheap as I could make it on Amazon. But if you really want a copy, if you want to read my thoughts on Christianity, and you don't want to pay the money for it, I guess if you can find me on Facebook, the link is also in the description. Send me a message, and I'll send you a PDF version for free. And basically, what I outline is that Christianity and Jesus was all about loving people, not hating people, not telling people what they should and shouldn't do. It was just loving people as people, as individuals, and just setting people free to be themselves, to explore, to live in this world. We have this picture of Christianity that we get from maybe someone like Westboro Baptist Church, who have their big signs at all the rallies and things, and hating on people and telling people they're going to hell. And that even puts me as a Christian off. Like, really, that's not right. So yeah, I encourage you, have a look at my book and see what I mean by Christianity, because I think we get a lot of this perception, we have this view in our minds of what Christianity is, of these people yelling fire and brimstone on the corner of the street, but that's not what God had in mind at all. So I really urge you and encourage you to check out my book. Moving on. Part of the idea of living in the simulation was that it's a model. It's a model of how the world could function. And you see, we all have these models built in our subconscious of how the world works. I say model, but to me it's a set of expectations on how the world operates, of how we should operate in the world to get certain results. Our mind is very complex, and it has hundreds and thousands of these little rules that it's learned over time on how to protect itself, how to get the most out of life. And I think we get stuck in some of these things, in that they may have worked for us in the past, or they may work for us in the short term, but in the long term, we may compromise ourselves. We may compromise that long-term goal, that long-term future, for the short-term immediate gain. Where does that come from? When things were more difficult for us, maybe when we didn't have civilization as we know it, and we lived in caves or whatever, the urge to eat, the urge to procreate, there were some really strong urges that we needed to have in order to survive as a species. And that urge for sugar, for instance, we know that the human body just goes absolutely crazy for sugar, and sugar in small doses when you're not having a lot of sugar is really good, because it gives you the energy to keep on going. But with an abundance of sugar like we've got today, we can see the obesity epidemic worldwide, where if you just eat too much sugar, if you just listen to those cravings, you're going to end up very unhealthy. There's obviously a lot of other complicated things going on there. People that eat for other reasons, maybe a food addiction, or eat to self-medicate, or eat to feel better about themselves, or just as a comfort. We talk about comfort food. There's the common trope or meme, I guess, of the breakup ice cream, and you just finish a whole bottle of ice cream or a whole tub of ice cream because you've just broken up with someone. So there's all those aspects of it. But the point I'm making is that model works under certain circumstances and is good under certain circumstances, but our lives are not short-term. Our lives are lived long-term. And so the delay of gratification seems to be the major factor in how successful one is in life in the long term. If you are able to save, if you're able to not just go and spend crazy amounts of money on your credit card, if you put some money aside for later. There's that famous story of the ant and the grasshopper, and how the ant goes and stores food away for the winter, and the grasshopper doesn't, and then it gets to the winter and the grasshopper has no food, and knocking on the ant's door and says, "Oh, can I have some food? I know you've got food." And the ant's like, "Well, if I give you my food, I don't have anything left, and then we're going to starve, and my whole family's going to starve." So the delay of gratification is another mindset that goes counter to our ordinary subconscious will, if you may. It's putting things in their proper place. It's having a bigger perspective, if you will, taking a step back and looking not just in the now, but you look at, what does this decision mean for me later on in the future? What does this decision to purchase this new set of shoes on my credit card now, what does that mean at the end of the month when I have to pay my bills and my credit card bill comes in, and will I just keep on going into debt, or will I be able to actually pay off my credit card? So the delay of gratification, in my opinion, is what makes us civilized. It's what makes us successful. It makes us able to provide for our future self. If you think of that as the current self and the future self, what are you doing today to set up your future self for success? Or are you just going to get to the future and have huge amounts of debt and huge amounts of baggage that you're carrying, which you then have to deal with? The delay of gratification is being able to think ahead. It's taking that step back and looking out for your future self. I don't like the idea of getting too worked up about it. I don't like the idea of worrying about it. But we all have a responsibility to our future selves. I don't like the idea of worrying unduly about tomorrow. But we do all have a responsibility to set up our future selves for success, to ensure that the future you or future me has it better than today's me or today's you. Part of setting yourself up for success is setting up routines, setting up those habits that mean that you don't have to think about it too much. You've already made a decision. You didn't buy all that chocolate and stuff it in your fridge for later. I mean, who am I kidding? I'd eat it straight away. There's a thought that I had before where I said it's not difficult to change, but there are certain decisions that we can make to make it easier for ourselves. If your mental model is set up in such a way that you're looking to the future, then you're in for a better time than if you're only living in the now, if you're only living in that instant gratification mode. I want to encourage you to think about areas in your life where maybe you can think of the long term rather than the short term, where you can delay that gratification a little bit, where you can set up your future self for a better time, for a better life. I once read something that said, we should at all times be willing to trade in who we are for who we may become. We need to look at our core beliefs that form that model, our core expectations that form that model. And if it's not working for us, if it's not working for you, then feel free to give up some of those. If you think that it's not working, if you think that it's holding you back, why hold on to it? Why not let go? Why not choose a different model? Take a step back. Take a look at the future. Take a look at the now. I'm not saying don't live in the now, because obviously you've got to live in the now. You've got to be present. But you need to keep in mind the future. Don't sacrifice your future self for a little bit of pleasure today, because that's what makes a difference to your success in life. That's what will be the difference between you being successful in 10 years' time and you being a failure in 10 years' time. And I guess success and failure are the wrong terms, but they're terms that are easy to understand. We all have goals, we all have dreams, and if we are unwilling or unable to set ourselves up for that dream, you'll never get there. And in 10 years' time, you'll look back and wonder where this time has gone, wonder where your resources have all been spent, and you might not have anything to show for it. And I think it's important that we are happy looking back at our decisions. It's important that we don't have these regrets of what happens if I had have done that, or what if I had have done this. I would say that the delay of gratification is one of those things that makes us successful as humans. It's one of those things that has made us do well. If you look at civilizations, the ones that are able to plan ahead, the ones that are able to think about the future, have been the ones that have been more successful over time. There's thoughts as to why that is, about how people who evolved or people groups who may have lived in colder climates had to save food in the summer to get in the winter, whereas people in warmer climates didn't need to do that because there was food available, there was a bounty available all through the year. But you have a choice. You have the choice to think about the future. You have a choice to delay the gratification today for something better tomorrow. Thanks for watching. In my next video, I'm going to get back to talking a little bit about Christianity and what it means in terms of you being broken or not broken, and we're going to look at that because I think there's something there. I think there's something to be explored, something that we can discover about ourselves. If you enjoyed this, if you got something out of it, please share. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.